Hi, everyone. This is Melanie Smith at Solo Select. We've got a very cool podcast episode for you guys today. We've got some visitors from a long ways away. Tish Healey is here from Australia, and she's coming to visit us to talk a little bit about the stallions, talk about breeding season logistics for, I guess it would be y'all's 2026 breeding season that will be starting in what, August?
September.
Okay, August, September. So Australia is opposite side of the world from us, of course, so their breeding season is almost exactly opposite of ours, which works great for us as stallion owners. It allows us to export semen on these stallions and have a second market for them over in Australia. And so Tish came on and started promoting the Solo Select stallions in Australia 2 or 3 breeding seasons ago.
Yeah, I think two
breeding seasons ago. And it's been a wonderful partnership. We've had customers from Australia that have reached out that have just been so happy with their experience from A to Z. And we really feel like this is a great, almost like another arm of Solo Select in Australia. And so the partnership has been wonderful. It's been great for our stallion owners to have, like I said, a secondary market for these horses during the off season. And I think it's cool for us because we get to see these horses excel in a totally different market over there. You know, some of them go on to be cutting horses, but you guys have camp drafting and all these other things. So we're going to get more into that in a little bit and talk a little bit about the Australian quarter horse market and kind of how it's developed, and it's really growing, I think, a lot over the last couple of years, no different than ours is. And
definitely.
So we'll get into that through here. What I'm going to start off first is, of course, introducing Tish. And Tish, I'd love to hear from you on just kind of what happened in your career to make you somebody that ended up getting these stallions from the United States and representing them. You know, how did that come about?
It just sort of spiraled, really. I bought a stallion. We got into cutting about 2012. I ended up buying a stallion that was imported from America called Tap Dancing Cat that was really popular in Australia, and he came over and did really good. He's actually a full brother to Don't Look Twice.
Okay.
So that's how it sort of started. And I just had him and I was promoting him, and I was like, you know what? I think I can do a pretty good job of this. And I didn't know how to get into it. And I got introduced to John Kratzner over here, who's the owner of MVP. And we met him and had lunch. And anyway, he's really the start of it. He gave me my opportunity to show because I was like nobody in this field,
Sure.
With the stallions, and except for my own. And he took the gamble, and it paid off. We've sold him out for 3 years in a row, and from that we got Animal, and then they moved here to Solo, and we met you, and it just kept going from there.
Kind of spiral.
Yes,
that happens.
yes.
That happens at Solo sometimes.
Yes.
we start into something and then it spirals, so you get to be a part of that.
No, I love it.
Fortunately or unfortunately, here we are. And so you've seen we move fast around here, and it was perfect timing for us when we were kind of building our stallion roster out, that naturally MVP and Animal were already over there with you, and we were able to move the studs that we had with you. And like I said, it's been a great experience so far. So I guess let's talk a little bit about you and your husband. It's Rod, right? So
Yes.
You and your husband Rod, kind of tell us a little bit about your story and how you guys got to the cutting horse industry.
Well, I grew up in Tamworth, which is, our Fort Worth, I guess you'd say, in that's where we have our big Futurity. And not once did I ever watch the Futurity. That whole time I grew up there, and we knew it was on, and they had the celebrity cutting, and that was about all we knew. And then we were always into horses. Rod grew up, his mum's into dressage, and his sister were into that sort of thing. So we're always into horses. And then we decided after I moved to Young, once I'd met Rod, that we would, start just riding again, and met a friend who was doing cutting, and he let us have a go on his horse. And as it all starts, we started in the snaffle bit classes, and then we're like, I need a one-handed horse, and it just went from there. And we got a good mare that by fluke, she ended up being a really good open horse, and then we thought we'd breed her, and then we went to a stallion, and then here we are.
Yeah, here we are. And so since 2012, how has the cutting industry grown over there?
Oh, a lot. Like breeding wise, it's just grown more and more. Like when I first got into it, that's when Tap Dancing Cat was over competing, and I didn't own him then, and he was sort of the best thing that had been brought out. And there wasn't. You were breeding more to what was there in Australia at the time. There wasn't as much going on where you were breeding to American. You were a bit breeding to American studs, but it's not like it is now, where pretty much that's the dominant market. You would everyone wants to breed to whatever the best thing going over here, and it's evolved from where, you know, embryo transfer, you know, came around, and that sort of blew the market up, and now just really in the last 2 years, you know, ICSI's really taken off, which has made it even easier because, you know, obviously the semen and things like that doesn't always travel that well, or it mightn't be as great, but we still get the opportunity then to be able to breed to the stallions that are over here that everyone watches, and a lot of the cutting industry in Australia come here to watch, you know, the Futurity here and compete in it. Like there's heaps of them that have competed here or trained over here and then gone back and started training in Australia.
Yeah.
You know, you've seen how many trainers are here that are from
Then
Australia.
we steal some of your trainers.
Yes.
And bring them over here.
Yes, you do. But that's okay. There's enough to go around.
There's enough to go around, yeah. And so, what do you think? Now, let's talk about the camp drafting. Actually, I want to go into that.
Yes.
So, explain what camp drafting is for people that don't know.
So they do a bit of like a cutout in a little pen first, but it's more, I always sort of explain it like football in a way. And so, you know, where cutting's more defensive to stop it getting back. You're sort of going up at it offensively.
It's like almost like the sorting, like the team sorting kind of what we have over here.
You've got to choose one out, and then they sort of, and I'm not a big camp draft, you know, expert, but this is how I, and then they'll open the gate and they've got to chase it around 2 or 3, I think it's 3 pegs, and like sort of through a gate at the end, you know, or a make-believe gate. So it's got a little bit of that cow horse part of it too, where they do, you know, cow horse really crosses over into the boat and reining, but the camp draft is our biggest market.
Yeah.
And, you know, they started mainly Australian stock horses, but a lot of them now breed to American studs for that camp score, which is in that cutout section at the beginning, because they get a score for there and then a score for when they're out running around the trees or pegs.
So
they're going to hate how I've explained that too, because I'm not a camp drafter.
You're getting judged by the camp drafters right now.
That is not how it works.
I can explain it, and they can't get mad at me because I've never actually watched it. But the best I can understand it, and one of my best friends, Samantha Hall, her and her husband have camp drafting horses over there, so she's also going to be unimpressed with what I tell you right now. But to me, it feels like we have a judged sorting.
Yes.
Basically, one person in there. And these horses are super cowy when you watch them. It looks a little bit like the sorting. It's a little more forward movement. And in a snaffle bit almost always too, isn't it?
No, our snaffle bits, you know, our snaffle bit classes are more like just like your one-headed normal cutting classes, just you can steer, but you've got to sort of stay back off them. Whereas I find with the camp draft, they're sort of more aggressively going at it to get it closer to that gate.
But they're two-handed in there, aren't
yes,
they?
Yes. And they're usually like a snaffle bit.
Okay.
And they're in stock saddles or, you know, a fender saddles, not a Western saddle.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they do that two-handed, and then once they get their score in there, then they go out, and it's almost kind of like the cow horse part, what I call the cow work and the cow horse, except for you don't actually run and turn one down the fence.
No.
You're just kind of
turn it
tracking
around
them.
the trees and then through a gate kind of thing. Yeah.
So I think to explain it to people that haven't seen that and for them to kind of understand how popular this is, I think this is similar in popularity to what the team roping is in the United States. Like there's so many different people that do it at so many different levels. I'm assuming that's how the team roping is here, where the cutting is kind of like y'all's. It's really, really growing like exponentially fast right now, but there's still not as many people that do the cutting as what you see do the team roping. And so
and that's definitely the same.
Yeah. And so one thing I've seen with the camp drafting over there is a lot of that is what I call crossed, either straight thoroughbred horses, which you guys call stock horses, or crossed like cow.
Yeah, they're Australian stock horses.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that a cow, what we call a cow run cross? Is that what you would call that?
I think it sort of started with like a thoroughbred cross, and then now a lot of them though is like a quarter horse cross Australian stock horse.
Right.
Yeah, because they still want them a bit taller, you know, a bit leggier to be able to run, but they're crossing them with the with the American quarter horse cutting stallions for that camp school as well. And because they can run too, you know, they're sort of starting to change that mentality where they need this tall, leggy horse because they don't, because they're fast little things.
Yeah,
even if they're short and stumpy, they can run.
They have to be so fast now, even in the cutting. I think that's, I know we're going to talk about Albert Hingham today, but that's one thing Kenny always says about him, and I think that's where he will still excel over there in other disciplines because he's so fast. Like he never gets, it's hard to say one never gets outrun across the cutting pin because it's such short spurts, but he's just so fast he never gets outdone, you know, and puts himself in a bad position. And so I think those horses like that are really successful over there because obviously they're good in the cutting, but they can cross over to the camp drafting, which is arguably an even larger market than the cutting is now.
Oh, it is, definitely. It is.
And so, so Solo Select started sending stallions over there 2 years ago, we had stallions over there, but didn't really push them very hard. And now you've got almost every stud we have there. Tell us about the kind of mares you're seeing booked to these studs. Like, are you getting a lot of camp drafting mares or cutting mares, or is there a good mix of them?
There's a good mix. Still at the moment, I think predominantly is cutting, because they're the ones that know, especially the new and up and coming ones, you know, but they start to break into the camp draft. So, you know, if we, you know, like Once in a Blue Moon, for instance, you know, and he's ICSI only over there at the moment, but the camp drafters love him. But he started because he's big and he can throw a bit of size and things like that. And Woody's the same, you know, and he's an outcross for everything. But those sort of more junior studs, as you'd say, like in the newer ones like MVP and Third Edge, and they're still definitely the cutters, but there's still probably a quarter is camp drafters that are sort of dabbling in both fields, but they definitely cross over into the camp drafting, all of them. But I find it's still predominantly for those younger studs, the cutters that are going for them to start with. But a lot of cutting horse people in Australia are kind of doing a bit of both as well. Yeah, they're doing both sports.
And so is it like what we see sometimes in the team roping here, where we will see some of those horses that, for example, don't quite make it in the cutting because, let's say, they're just not cow enough, maybe. But they have the perfect amount of cowie to be a heel horse, for example, and they're really successful in the heeling sometimes. Do you see that happen with the cutting over there? Do you see some of y'all's horses over there that maybe aren't the top 1% open horses?
They go into great. Yeah, they can go camp drafting. Yeah, that was the main industry where they went if they didn't quite make it as a one-handed horse, because you could, you know, some of them were great two hands, but once they just didn't make that next step, and they would make great camp draft horses. Now our reining cow horse in market is growing, and it's been growing over the last few years, and so now some of them are going that way too, whereas before that wasn't as big a, you know, industry at all. But it's definitely growing, so they're going that way too. But if they've got the size
and probably the speed.
Yeah, so if they've got the size and the speed, they definitely go drafting. And we've got a big sale every year, nutrient sale in February. And a lot of them that maybe aren't quite there, or they are good, they'll put through their, you know, they have to be ridden. So it's usually, you know, they're heading to that Futurity year, or they can be older, but a lot of them, you know, that's where they get really good money, is at the camp draft sale, more so than the cutting sale. So we've only got one little yearling sale through the cutting at the moment. That's where everyone focuses their horses if they want to sell them in a sale and try and get good money.
And what about you and I have talked a little bit about the team roping, and I thought that would be bigger over there, but it's not as big as I thought it would be. So, but is it growing?
It's growing, because they weren't, you know, I suppose this was like here, I think a few years ago, well, probably 5 years ago, they weren't the big breeders. They, you know, they used to get your ex-cutters and things, and that's where I feel like we're always about that 3 years behind, where it's funny because we've got now, you know, Pride and Joy and The Dark Side and Time to Glow, and we've only got the mixie at the moment while they're competing. And I thought, well, you know, our team ropers aren't big breeders yet, you know, and that's kind of going to the end of the scale breed wise. You know, that's the sort of, once you've been doing it, you go ICSI sort of thing. And they've booked in to do ICSI as some team ropers, and I was surprised because I thought this might be a hard push over there, because they've only just sort of started their breeding sort of journey, really, a lot of them. So yeah, they're going straight to the, you know, to get it done. Yeah, which is, and it's a big deal in Australia, because there's only really a couple of labs that do it and a couple of vet clinics, so it's not accessible for everyone. So they're willing to, you know, send their horses, you know, from Victoria to Queensland, you know, to get it done, you know, so they're keen to have them.
That's really cool. We're seeing the same thing here, of course. Like you said, you and I always felt that way. You guys are always several years behind the trend here, I feel like. But really just in the last 2 to 3 breeding seasons, we're seeing ropers come up, same thing. It was like a roper was never going to ICSI a mare before. Like, they're like, absolutely not. And now today I had a guy call in and buy embryos out of 8 select genes mares, and he said, I want 2 of each, all by rope horse or running bred studs, and that's, you know, I need 16 babies next year, and all of them are going to be heading to the roping. And that would have been unheard of 3-4 years ago, but now there's so much money to win, and these yearlings and things are selling so well that if you have, no different than over there, if you have the quality, you have the right mares bred to the right studs, fashionably bred, big pretty horses, the world is at your fingertips right now.
Yeah, and our roping's growing. Like last year, I think they had like a gold buckle and I don't know a lot about it. It was the first time they held it, and we talked to one of the girls involved in it and talked to her about maybe next year being involved, because it's only just got off the ground, and to see those industries starting to grow, because before it was just little rodeos and things, and there was some team ropings, but it wasn't as big a market unless you were in it. You sort of didn't know about it, whereas now I think it's starting to get a little bit more popular and getting out there, and I think the breeding of them, and I can even see people asking me now for barrel studs, which was never a thing before either. So,
really
and
cool.
every time I'm coming over, I get reiners and barrel racers, talking to me going, can you see if you can get this one? Can you see if you can get that one? And so, where they weren't breeders much before either. Yeah. So it's definitely, growing, and I think it's got a lot to do with television. But
and social media,
and
all of that.
Yes.
So I think people kind of misunderstand a lot of times how big of a pain in the rear it is to get semen over to you guys. Yes. And so a lot of people call me and they're like, hey, I want to send my stud to Australia. Can you freeze on them and send some? And I'm like, sure. I just want to break it down for you so that you understand what you're getting into. Like, it's very doable. It just has its hurdles.
Yes.
And so I'm going to talk a little bit on my side about what that kind of looks like for stallion owners that potentially want to do that. And then I'll let you talk about kind of the logistics on your side. And so for us here at Solo, what we do is we will typically freeze on those stallions during the off season. We give them a little break after breeding season. We've got to start a quarantine here. So then our entire stallion barn is under quarantine. The rules are very strict whenever that happens to make sure we stay within the USDA regulations. We have to send blood off. There's, a laundry list of things that USDA wants to make sure that everything we're sending over there isn't bringing in any outside diseases, of course. And so we do all of that. We fill out the health certificates, which is I think you should go to vet school to learn to fill out a vet certificate for Australia and Europe and Brazil, because, oh my gosh, they are so complicated, and it depends on who you get at USDA and how much coffee they've had this morning, if you're going to get that through in 3 days or 3 weeks.
Yes.
It is a toss-up.
They're so strict.
So the logistics of all of it is a lot more complicated than I ever thought, and it's really just learning to be ahead of all of that. Like, we sent our semen to you guys in January for next year, so y'all have a lot of semen on the studs for next year, which
is awesome.
Yes, I was like, I'm never doing this again. I'm never shipping semen in September again.
Oh my God, no, because it always gets held up no matter what you do.
No matter what we do, it's just something
panicking
along the way, whether it's UPS or the airplane or
your government shuts down,
or we have a government shutdown for 3 weeks, and so that was an experience.
Yes.
And we're like, we would love to get it sent to you, but the government is literally shut down, and there's nothing we can do. So, it's been an adventure figuring all of those logistics out. But I think the best thing we could do to figure it out was, I told Matt, I'm like, we're sending our semen in January. It's going out in January. We're not going to worry about it all of breeding season. I don't care what it costs to store it over there between now and then. That's what we're doing. So that's kind of how we tried to get ahead of it. And, but then we run into these studs like LBR Hingham, right?
Yes.
And he's showing, and it's like, well, we need all the frozen semen we can get for here, but we want to send some there. So you're torn as a stallion owner of how much you can send off. And it's been great this year. We've sent you guys some ICSI doses, and it sounds like you've had some success over there with it.
Yep. There's some on the way already. We've well, I know of 2 because I've got 2, but there's people still doing it now, and then freezing to put in the breed season.
Yes.
So, and there's some booked in for this week. So there should be a few babies that'll probably get put in for next year. But there's definitely a couple that'll be late bloomers though. But they'll be coming late for next season.
Yeah, yes. That's exciting.
We couldn't wait, so we did some late.
And so then whenever we get the semen to you, it goes to, we use gene movers over there. Goes to gene movers, get processed, everything gets released. And then what does that look like on your side for an Australian breeder that wants to book to a stud that's, let's say, from Solo Select?
Yeah. So then they contact me either by, email, phone, message on Facebook, and I send them the contract. They fill it out, send it back. We work out all the payments to make sure they're paid up. And then on their contract, they'll state which vet we then contact gene movers, and we have to give authority for it to be released from there for them, so that only paid up breeders can get them. And it gets shipped direct to whichever vet. And as Australia's so spread out, so they go to Western Australia, Queensland, everywhere, South Australia, you know, and so then it just gets sent to whichever vet they're using, and pretty much all the main vets are used to using frozen because that's all we breed with, pretty much. So, and then they just let us know, the vets I talk with or the breeders, about, you know, when they've got a positive pregnancy to do our breed return, basically, once they get to 45 days, and then we put the breed return in. But it's much easier because, you know, having, you know, myself over there with them, in that everyone's unorganised, as we all are, and they'll be like, we need a dose sent to this vet tomorrow. And it's hard if you're trying to deal with, you know, the time difference and things like that.
It would be terrible.
Yes, that's what I found. And so everyone's always wanting it like yesterday, and you know, so that part of it. They also ring and ask, you know, have I seen them? What do I think would cross well? Like, what's this one like? What's that one personality? You know, are they this? Are they that? So I think having someone, and also someone that they know, sometimes too helps. You know, they'll say, well, what would you breed to, or what do you like? And so I give a little bit of advice there, where I think, you know, what I would, if it was mine, or I give them some options, you know, and they let them know, you know, what price points and things we've got available. And luckily, like, all of ours are pretty much got good semen. You know, we've got some that are just ICSI only for while they're competing and things, but everyone else has got great semen, which makes my job so much easier.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah, because we do have a big problem with that in Australia, with some coming over that you just are hard to breed to. So, you know, which is good now there is ICSI available, because prior to that, you know, people were just burning through money trying to get them bred, and it just wasn't working. Yeah.
I think, like you said, just like over here, people will call me and say, hey, you know, here's a picture of my mare, and here's how she's bred. Here's her papers. Here's what she's done. What do you think I should breed to? Well, they sent me that from a horse in Australia. Some of those are Australia bred, more or less. You know, they're by studs that were only in Australia, out of mares that are all straight, that Australian breeding. And I'm like, well, I don't know.
I know you don't know.
No idea what to tell you. I can tell you based off how she looks. And so I think that's where having a great agent is so important, because you understand the trends over there. You know what the trainers want to ride. You understand what a lot of times those bloodlines are lacking in. You know, do they need a little more cow? Do we need a little more size? Are they good withered? Are they bad necked? You know, whatever that is, that sometimes you can pull from just knowing how one's by a certain stud or out of a certain maternal line are. And that's how it works here. But, you know, we would be no help to somebody over there. So it's super helpful to have that.
Because there is a lot of Australian mares.
There's a lot. Yeah. When you send me papers on some of them, I'm like, I've heard of some of that, but I mean, I wouldn't know the first thing about how they are. If they're sort of hot, or, you know, need a bit of a cooler stud. Yeah, exactly. So they do talk, and it depends what they're wanting them for too, you know, what discipline, but also, what if their mare's got characteristics that they don't want, or they do. And so they ring up and have, you know, and everyone loves to talk about their horses. Oh, yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
So, we have those conversations and sort of nut out, you know, well, maybe not this one, or, you know, this one probably a better cross. And sometimes where we start is not where we end.
Sure.
Yeah, so.
Talk to me a little bit about the trend in importing mostly mares over there, and how much of that is really going on. When are they importing them? Are they doing it at the end of their career, early in their careers?
There's not a lot. Like, people do, but it's not on a huge scale.
What does it cost to get one?
$50,000.
Yeah, so you're going to have a lot of horse.
And that's not even with, you've got to then pay GST on the value of the horse once it gets there and things like that. So, you know, and I only know this because I'm literally taking one over in June, and I'm like, it keeps going up. And then so it's cheaper to come this way, like to bring one over, but it's because of our quarantine and things, it costs more. But so it's, you know, you're going to be looking at $50,000 just for the airfare and things, let alone the value of the horse. So it's got to be worth something, bloodline wise, or they definitely don't tend to take them before they've competed, or, you know, sometimes they'll come straight after their futurity. You know, they would put them through the futurity here, then take them over to then compete in the aged events in Australia. So the Derby, because our Derby is sort of 6 months after your futurity. Or just later. I've seen some people just bring some over as brood mares, and that's what I've kind of done too. So it's not a lot. You know, it is happening, but it's not on a huge scale because of the cost. That's why we wish we could import eggs.
I know. So, importing embryos is not a thing over there yet.
No. I think it will. I think there's people looking into it. Like, because when I thought it was happening, they said that they're looking into it because they bring in cattle eggs and things. So I don't know why.
It'll happen.
It'll happen. Yeah.
Well, this year, Solo is going to be the title sponsor of the Open Futurity, the cutting Futurity over there, which we're very excited about. Yeah. We feel like we have a set of stallions over here that, even in the United States, complement such a wide variety of mares, from, cutting horse mares to cow horse mares to rope horse mares to the run cow crosses. And it's cool to walk through the stallion barn here, I think, because they're like in all shapes and sizes and price ranges. And
yes,
so it's perfect because you could come and see every single stallion. That could be almost every type. It's like a candy store, right?
Yes.
What do you want to improve on your mare? Okay, this is the one. Do we need to be taller? Do we need to be more cowy? Do we need a better wither? Do we need a shorter neck, a longer neck? Whatever it is.
Yes.
So we have almost all these studs over there. And when you approached us about, do we want to be sponsors of the cutting Futurity? I'm like, of course. Like, that fits perfect with what we're trying to do over there. So tell us a little bit about your cutting Futurity, when it happens, where it happens, all of that.
So it's in Tamworth, which is also our country music capital, so like our Nashville.
Okay.
It's from usually around the end of May, so it's around that I think this year it starts on the 26th of May until the June long weekend, which ends on the 8th of June. So it goes for 2 weeks, and it's like here, it's coming into our winter time, like here you've got it in your sort of winter time. And it's the biggest show of the year, so everyone travels to it. So we have other futurities, in Queensland and Victoria, but not everyone doesn't necessarily go to all of those because they're so far out, but everyone comes to Tamworth. So it's the biggest show for traders, everything. They have a bit of a yearling sale there too, but our Futurity isn't where you've got just your Futurity. So because we're not as big an industry, we also have our Derby, and we call it the Open Classic Challenge, which is our 5, 6, 7s.
Okay.
Yeah, we used to be only 5s and 6 and 7 year olds sort of thing, but they extended that 7th year for 5 and 6 year olds. Then they extended the 7th year when COVID happened.
And so are they going to leave it like that?
Yeah, which I think is good.
That is great.
So it just gives them that extra year because a lot of horses missed out. So they let them, and then they've just kept it, which is great. So, I just have to say a huge thank you as well for you coming on board, because, we all breed to American stallions over there. The worst thing you can do is nearly take a stallion to Australia because they want what's over here, So, and although we're small, industry compared to Australia, to America, we feel, you don't often see people putting back into our industry because I get it, it's smaller and stuff. So I think it's everyone has shown so much, appreciation and wanting me to pass that on to you for getting behind our industry, which doesn't always happen, So they definitely are very grateful, as I am.
Well, when we sponsored the show, donating some breedings for you guys to auction off over there for one of the other ones, that was really good. And so many nice people were like, thank you. So people were just really nice about it, which is great.
Well, they appreciated it because that show wasn't going to get off the ground otherwise, because they had to last minute change locations because there was renovations and they thought they'd be finished, and they were like, I don't think we're going to be able to do it. And they said, do you think you could ask Mel? I was like, no worries, I'll ask her. And it was perfect. It was straight. There was no, I'll think about it.
No, it was perfect.
It worked really well.
So this year at the cutting, we're going to do a special on the studs, and it's similar to some specials that we run here that people absolutely love. And it's kind of our way of kind of a thank you to our customers that book early, that, engage in our stallions. But I'll let you kind of explain what it's going to be this year.
Yeah, so it's similar to your Black Friday, which basically, and it runs right in the middle of our breed season, so that's why that doesn't work for us.
So we don't do
that anymore.
We're doing Australia version of Black Friday.
Yes, but it's our Futurity special, where if you book in and pay full fee to any of the stallions at the Futurity, or even the booking fee, at least deposit that, you can then have an option of booking in for half price to the animal. He's a dual bet and tic-tac.
Yes.
A tic-tac.
Yes. We call them tic-tac.
Yeah, so metallic tic-tac. So you can have one of those, either any of those for half price if you book into any, or you can book tic-tac and get a half price tic-tac.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think that's a really good, and he's been popular because he's so pretty.
He's pretty. Yeah. And they're gonna, I think, do you guys have any babies on the ground over there?
No,
yet?
He only came at the end of last year.
Yeah.
So but there's some coming.
They're gonna love them.
Yeah. And I've heard his semen is dynamite.
His semen's really good.
Yes,
That's
been good.
He's like the one that we can always count on. His semen is amazing, fresh or frozen, and everybody loves the babies. Back to my don't pet your horse TikTok that went so viral the other day. People either loved or hated it. If you have a Tic Tac, they're kind of a problem because they're just in your business. Like from the beginning, they are already pets. They pre-come as pets. And so
I think he's another one too that's going to cross well into a lot of sports over there because he's got the size for the camp drafting.
Yes.
He's pretty. I think he'll rein cow horse. You know, he's obviously doing the roping. You know, he's kind of that one. If you don't really know what you want to do, you just breed to him and you can probably choose what you want.
That's exactly right. So here, like, that's exactly what people have done with them here. Is they're like, well, I want something that can do a little bit of everything, but could still excel exceptionally well in one of the disciplines. And so we've crossed him on such a wide variety of mares, and probably just because they're so different from everything. My favorite crosses have been on the racehorse mares.
Yeah, right.
We have one out of Runaway Heart that is just to die for. And he was like, she's a big first down dash daughter, but he was 15-1 and weighed 1,050 pounds as a yearling. He was amazing though. And he was that big, but you know, when we breed to a racehorse, we're always like, well, you know, you hope that you get the stop and the wide back end stance and, you know, the strength that they have kind of in that back end to be able to stop and get around themselves. But the height and some of the things that, you know, the speed, of course, that we get out of racehorse mares, well, it doesn't always work that way. Sometimes we get, you know, short ones that can run, but they're too short to do anything fun, you know, and it doesn't always work, but that horse has very consistently worked really, really well on the race horses. And we've seen those horses that do have exceptional amount of height, but then like you lope them around the round pen and they lope like cow horses or reiners, and then they can just, it's really easy for them to get in the ground, stop and get through themselves. And that has been the beauty of him on those racehorse mares. So I think just the way he's made, he's complemented those mares really good for the camp drafters. And then of course we see him on these cutting in cow horse mares, and it's been exceptional.
And I think the rope horse deal's growing too, where that's some, you know, he's a good stud for people to get off the ground with too, because he's great value for money.
Yes.
For the, you know, because there's definitely, you know, that market in Australia at the moment where, you know, the stud prices just jumped, you know, so we've got some great value studs on them. Like to me personally, Metellus Cat is the best value stud on the market in Australia for what he's done. And he's got some great progeny going in Australia. He even though he's not huge, he throws size. Like he does. I've seen some big ones.
That's the same thing here. When we bought him and he got here, I was like, I'm really shocked. He's not a really big horse, but his babies are huge.
Yes,
they are all big. So
and there's some really good ones.
Yes, and they're pretty, and they're pretty necked, and they got a big, pretty eye, and I just love that horse.
And I think babies. You know, for you know, he's $2,750. You know, in Australia,
great
like.
Price.
You can't go wrong with that, you know. So I just feel that there's that, you know, I always put that out to people too. I'm like, he is a, you know, I always think if you have to fire sale any, you know, where you're going to get your money back or make money, you know, some of those bigger studs, you know, if you haven't got that big time mare, you know, our market can be, you know, a bit fickle. So he's definitely, I always say to people, God, I don't know, you can't go wrong with him.
And the same thing with the animal. He's had some really good ones over there, hasn't he? What, he had one that won the Open.
No, he had a non-pro trainer, which is awesome, but he went in the Open and the non-pro, and he was like, it was the horse of the show, you know, a bit like the Ali Good at the last, you know, she was like the rider, and everyone what remembers that horse more, Nelly. Sorry. But it was a bit like that. Little Miss Animal, she was the star of the show. And she was sort of runner-up in things, but she definitely, you know, she was the most consistent over that whole show. And she's been really good. And then one just sold in that camp draft sale, a different one, for over $100,000, you know, who was the same age as Little Miss Animal. Yeah, so he'd had a bit of a run there. But, you know, it's been a few years because, you know, they weren't old enough. So they're only just starting to make their name now. And I don't feel like when he first came over, he, you know, probably was given the best opportunities either with mares and things like that, because, you know, it's really hard, you know, when there's heaps of stallions on offer, and, you know, those chestnut guys that are really good, but there's a lot of good chestnuts. That's why they're good. But I have all my best at chestnut too. But, you know, he had a lot to compete with, you know, so I think it took some to really take off for them to see now that, you know, he's a good horse, and he bred like not last season, the season before, you know, he had a great season after Little Miss Animal. You know, people were just running up saying, "Sure, we want to breed to him." Because I mean, I think Brendan told me that he bred that mare out of his turnback horse. That's awesome, and I love that.
And I think that's a really good example of that horse his ability as a sire, because like you said, he has these ones coming up that are winning in the camp drafting and the cutting, and he wasn't bred. It's not like he was bred to the best top tier mares right off the bat. Now we may see a little different trend in the next couple of years because they like him and they're seeing all that. No different than over here, but it's cool to see what he can produce out of some mares that maybe weren't supposed to be producers. Exactly. And here they are hitting.
And I think a lot of his batch would have been born through that COVID period too, where a lot of horses missed out because we had like no shows going on for a while there, and then only Queensland, like we missed I think 2 Futurities. So you know, that where they sort of got to make their name, you know, to get going. I think where they sort of missed, so now they're sort of starting to come around. And he's such a nice stud too. Yes, like he's really nice, and Cindy's great too. And she so loves that stallion.
She is, and she's like the dream stallion owner for a mare owner, because like there is no lack of support.
Oh no,
she will do anything to make sure that your foals have every opportunity to win everything possible. She's been a great supporter of them in Australia. Same thing here. And so she's an outstanding stallion owner.
She's great. She's easy to deal with. She even makes me bring contraband over from
Australia. She's great. We love Cindy. And proud for her that horse is doing so good over there. I think he's had 2 really strong breeding seasons here too, and really been breeding some really good mares. So we're excited to see.
And I see he's going in the rope horse still here too, which I think is because he's built strong too. So, you know, I think that's an option for people in Australia too. And he's part of that deal, which is great because he's 4,000 in Australia. So, you know, if you breed to Third Edge or MVP, or you can get him half price, which is great value too.
Great value. And that's kind of our thing, is we want to provide, you know, we know that some of these studs are going to have limited semen over there. We've got to keep the price at a certain range to make sure that we cover the cost of sending everything, but then, you know, having these extra add-ons. I own 2 of those, and Cindy's always a supporter of anything. I'm like, hey, let's get some more animal babies on the ground to provide that for customers. It's great, and we want them to utilize it. So thank you for coming on today. I think we really just wanted people to kind of understand, what is Australia? How does it work? You know, it's kind of a foreign, well, it is foreign to us, right? But it's like, we don't hear a lot of people talk about it. How does the Australian market work, and how do you get semen over there, and why do you send semen over there, and when does breeding season go? So
we're just like the baby brother. Yeah, we're like the little. Right. You know, we're always like looking up and following in the footsteps. But it's been great, and I've been loving this partnership. It's been going good, and I love all the media and like marketing. You know, I'm not tech savvy, but I love that side of things and all their merch, and then I think it's great, and I think it's only growing definitely. And I think Solo getting behind our industry is going to definitely help too, because, you know, like they are just so appreciative, because it doesn't happen that often. You know, we've got to really kind of fight for our stuff over there. So, no, again, thank you, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, tell us if we have any Australian breeders listening to this, how do they get a hold of you?
Oh, they can either contact me on our Facebook page, Healey Quarter Horses, and I'm always on that instant messenger. Email at tish@healeyquarterhorses.com.au, and we've also got a website, www.healeyquarterhorses.com.au. So, and my phone number is 0429 823568. And I'm also a big texter, so feel free to text me.
There you go. I don't know. I don't think there's any other, besides writing you a letter. I think that's all the different ways.
Yeah, you can contact me however you like. Yeah. If you contact Solo, they'll send you that way.
Yes, we'll send you that direction. So, well, thanks for getting on today. I know now we have to go see the stallions.
Yes.
And you haven't been here since we've had all the remodel and
it was built, but only semi-built, and they hadn't moved in yet.
Yes. So you get to see all that. But thanks everybody for joining us today, and we'll see you on the next episode.
Bye.